Lenny McAllister joins us from HipHopRepublican.com. How are you, Lenny?
I'm doing well. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good. Did you enjoy the hip-hop we played coming into the segment?
It's all good. It's all good. Different types of hip-hop, different type of music. Good
all right.
flavor.
What's your favorite artist, Lenny?
Wow. I mean, it all depends on what kind of mood I'm in. If I'm listening to the iPod and I need some power, I may listen to Kirk Franklin.
Kirk who?
Kirk Franklin.
Kirk Franklin. Is he hip-hop or that's not hip-hop?
I mean, not necessarily hip-hop, but we're talking about different moods, like I said. I mean, if I'm
what do you think about Luda?
Yeah. Okay.
It's okay. Let's get it straight. The hip hop Republicans, you guys are in favor of clean stuff, right? As far as hip hop's concerned,
I'm really, as far as hip hop music is, I'm really old school. I don't like the misogynistic stuff. I can't take it. I can't tolerate it. I've never been able to, and then ever since I've had a daughter, it just went from I can't tolerate it to I don't even want it around me.
Mm-hmm. So that's curious. Why did you guys decide to go with hip hop Republican when so much of hip hop you object to?
Well, hip-hop, if you look at hip-hop, not necessarily as a culture, look at what happened with the hip-hop movement. In the 70s, African-American bands, R&B, they were big bands playing a lot of music, dance music, and singing and all choreographed moves on stage. Hip-hop comes along. Instead of a band, it's a record player. That doesn't make much sense. Instead of singing, it's spoken word over a record player. That makes even less sense. And then instead of making money at these huge events, at these arenas, you're talking about house parties or parties at warehouses. How's anybody going to be a staying power doing that? But it was taking different things that should not have matched and putting them together and creating something that's been staying for 30 years. Now you take that to the political arena. That's what we're trying to do with hip-hop republicanism. Free market principles, being a minority, traditional African-American issues and values, put them together. They shouldn't match. But in the 21st century, we need a different type of solution to start addressing these urban issues in Black America and other segments of big cities within America.
You know, it's interesting because, you make a good case for it, but overall, it sounds like you're stretching. I don't know, because when you hear hip-hop Republican, you expect you guys to be really into hip-hop music, and you're not that much into it. But that's unimportant. You made a good, smart case for it. So, and by the way, the website's hiphoprepublican.com,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
Let's keep it real, okay? Do you guys take a lot of crap from other African Americans?
Of course.
Okay.
We take a lot of crap, and you're going to take it from both sides. The Democrats are going to take you as the Toms. I can go back to an election that I ran for last year, heading the polls, coming into the home stretch, and a viral went out comparing me to Clarence Thomas. Now, there's one big issue between Clarence Thomas and me that we disagree on, and that's affirmative action. Mm-hmm. If anything's going to disqualify me as a Clarence Thomas clone, there you go. I don't agree with the conservative base there. We still need affirmative action, especially with black children at risk. Yet, the moniker played well with Democrats. It empowered them and blazoned them to work against me. It scared off blacks from wanting to vote and support me as much. And then you have Republicans that look at me as, is this a true Republican or somebody that's a rhino, Republican in name only? So you get it from all three fronts.
You do. And let's concentrate on the Republican side there, because is it worth the abuse? I was a Republican, and I remember, it's a story I tell often, and there were many stories like this. It's just emblematic. We're, sitting around with two other conservative Republicans in law school. One of our black classmates walks by, and one of the guys that are Republicans says, "Yeah, gee, I wonder how he got it." And the other guy laughs, and I thought, yeah, I don't really want to hang out with these guys. So, here's a party that has traditionally, for at least the last 50 years, not been good to your people. So why bother?
Because you need change. Barack Obama has become the vice presidential nominee because of the word change. It's the same thing. Somebody at some point in time has to engage the situation and say,
why
we
don't they
need more
engage
balance.
you? Why don't they engage you? Why do you have to go out and engage them?
Because you look at any bureaucracy, and this is going to sound like a Republican value, so I apologize. But I'm just going to apologize right now. But when you look at most bureaucracies, Republican or Democrat, any type of government or any type of huge corporation, you don't get the culture change from the top down more often than not. It ends up being more red tape that gets in the way. Usually are pockets within that organization that help promote that change to a point where it starts raising from the bottom up.
No, I hear you. But again, why bother? And the reason for that is, so here's a Republican Party that is, in a lot of ways, in my opinion, profited from discrimination. Not in my opinion. Ken Melman went to the NAACP, the former head of the RNC, and said, I'm sorry, we used the Southern strategy, a racist strategy, to win for decades and decades. Now they do it against gay folks, and they still do it against black folks. So why not? Why try to fix it? Why not just fight it?
Because you can fix and fight at the same time. If you believe in what the platform's supposed to be about, smaller government, opportunities for the individual to grow without having government in the way, maximizing your way of life through competition of choice, that is what appeals to me. That's what appeals to hip-hop Republicans. But when you're talking about a party structure, you're talking about people. And people can change, people can leave, leadership can change, leadership can progress and grow. The principles, in my opinion, are there. It's the structures, it's the people that need to reevaluate why they act the way they do. And they're not going to do that unless if there's some kind of foil, some kind of contrast to prompt that change. And that's what hip-hop Republicanism is doing right now.
And so that gets to the nitty-gritty of it. So that's theoretical, right? But when it gets to a practical matter and they run that ad against Harold Ford Jr. in Tennessee with the white Playboy bunny, and you know the wink and the nod they're giving to honestly, the racist community in Tennessee, that turns your stomach. How do you still stay in the room?
Because you stay in the room and you say, this turns my stomach. Look at the Barack Obama ad with Jeremiah Wright. I'm from North Carolina. I was there for that ad, and I stood up against that ad. As a black Republican, I said, this plays off of racial overtones. It was an unpopular message. I caught some flack, but the truth of the matter is, if I'm not involved in the structure, if I'm not involved in the system, it doesn't matter what I think, and things continue to be the same. Somebody has to be there to say, hey, you know what, that's over the line. We're not going to tolerate that anymore in 2008, and you'll be the lone wolf every now and then. But eventually, the pack will grow, and you have to believe that. Just have to have faith.
Well, you have to have a lot of faith to stay with the Republicans, so I'll give you credit on that. So now let's touch the topic that got us in trouble yesterday, which is Hurricane Katrina. George Bush is obviously late in response. I think it's obvious, but apparently Richard didn't agree with me, but obviously late in responding.
That was everybody, too. But
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I had already agreed to that. Nagin did such a better job in this case that you think, why didn't he do it in Hurricane Katrina? You know, and you can move it down the line, but the point is we need the federal government, and we need FEMA specifically, when people are in trouble and are about to die, their emergency management. They have to go in there and help those folks, and they didn't. And a lot of people thought it just was not that Bush thought, aha, those black people will die and I'll be happy. No way. And look, he does have black cabinet members that he deeply trusts. And when people say George Bush is racist, I actually argue against that.
And Latino family members.
Right. That's also true. And he trusts Connolly's arrest maybe more than anybody else in his cabinet right now. And so I hear all of that. But the real question isn't whether he wanted them to die. I don't think he wanted them to die. The question is, was it a high enough priority for him? And if it was his donors, if it was the folks who got him into office, if it was Halliburton, if it was ExxonMobil, he'd have been there lickety-split. Whereas a lot of people feel that it just wasn't a high enough priority, and he's like, oh, they died, oh, damn it, I guess I blew it, oh well.
Well, that's a perception, and I can understand that, and there's a case to build for that. But at the same time, this is not a popular president. So you can't sit there and say, well, he's done well with 4 other issues that have pleased Americans, but that Katrina issue was one he did not, and therefore maybe there's some kind of racist undertones to it. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to his approval ratings, although Congress is lower, his is still low, and it's based on several issues, not just Katrina, but how he's handled the war. And
but I want to talk specifically about how African Americans view it. A lot of African Americans in this country view it as he didn't care enough about enough about black people. And that's what Kanye West said, by the way. He didn't say George Bush hates black people. He said George Bush doesn't care about black people. So do you think there's validity in that argument?
I don't think there's validity in that argument. What I think, though, is if you're an ineffective leader, it starts being irrelevant as to what the color of your skin is. And people have made the argument that George Bush has been one of the least effective presidents over the course of 8 years. Now, some Republicans will make the case that, well, you know, there was 9/11. He had to deal with that. There were other issues he had to deal with that may have hampered his effectiveness. But the truth is, most Americans feel he's been one of the least effective presidents overall in the last 50 to 100 years. And when you take that in consideration, any big event that comes into play is going to be hampered. And
so basically what you're saying is he didn't mean it against black people. He's just generally incompetent.
If you ask the average American, would they say they have a lot of confidence in George W. Bush right now? The answer would be no.
I hear
and
you.
even if you went
So
to the delegation floor.
Let me wrap this up this way. We're talking to Lenny McAllister, and he's from hiphoprepublican.com. Look, I hear you on all that stuff. Reform from the inside. You have some conservative free market principles, which there's nothing wrong with. You might agree or disagree, but it's a perfectly valid opinion to have, etc. And I share some of those principles. Now, having said all that, when push comes to shove and you go into that voting booth, are you really going to vote for John McCain over Barack Obama?
Yes.
But the problem is he doesn't
why.
even believe in some of the principles you believe in. So, but I should let you answer. Go ahead.
This is why. Who do I feel is closer to the values that I have? I feel Barack Obama, as far as the historical figure, absolutely does. I have the utmost respect for him. You will never hear me bash him, and there will be instances where if somebody does bash him based on race, color, or creed, Barack Hussein Obama, that's out of bounds. But when it comes to whose policies are closer to where I sit, I believe it's Senator John McCain. Now, it doesn't mean he's a strong right-wing politician. He's not. He's moderate, and some would say he's center-left. Talk to a lot of people in this hall right now, they would tell you he's center-left.
I think that's absurd, but I hear you. Okay, so real quick, what are the things that John McCain has at Obama that really appeal to you, and you say, all right, despite all that, I'm going to vote for McCain?
I think he was more on target when it came to drilling first. I think Barack Obama is trying to alter his position to be more like John McCain's. That would be number one. Number two, I really do think the foreign policy approach is going to be different. I would like to see, honestly, something in between what the two candidates are doing. I think we have to do more diplomacy, but I don't want to go so far where we start yielding things. And that's the fear that if you talk to the conservative base, that's the fear they have with Barack Obama if he becomes president.
Yeah, I really disagree with those, but we're out of time, and it's okay. It's totally okay to disagree on it. But at least I understand your perspective now. So I appreciate you coming on and talking about it.
I appreciate yours. Thank you for having me.
All right, Lenny McAllister from hiphoprepublican.com.